as opposed to what do you think? Very powerful, small, powerful tool. In fact, the only thing you remember about today, get your students to write and then ask them, what did you write? What did you write? What did you write? What did you write? This empowers the shy students. It empowers the students for whom English is not a first language, where speaking without a script can be difficult. So the first thing I want you to think about is this. Imagine the perfect teacher. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to, on one line, write 2 or 3 attributes, adjectives, that describe this perfect teacher. And then in the line beneath that, I want you to write 2 or 3 behaviors that are verbs that this person manifests when teaching. Okay? So I want you to think of attributes and behaviors of the perfect teacher. Write down 2 or 3 adjectives and 2 or 3 verbs. So, first we have some attributes. The perfect or ideal teacher is what?
Engaging.
Engaging. Okay, what else?
Curious.
Curious. What else?
Listener.
Conscientious. What else?
Listener.
Whoa, all right, I love it. Oh my gosh, you guys are talking already. Okay, say something else.
Listener.
Okay, not an adjective. I'm a linguist. I'm a stickler for parts of speech. Is attentive.
Attentive.
All right, how's that? Conscientious, attentive. What else?
Supporting.
Say again?
Supporting.
Supporting. How about supportive? All right, that's good.
Charismatic.
What else? Patient. What?
Knowledgeable.
Not okay. Knowledgeable. Knowledgeable doesn't necessarily make a good speller. I'm a terrible speller. What else?
What would you consider someone who can integrate concepts from the classroom and apply topics outside? Who can show you how it applies in the real world?
Okay. Well, how about this? Because we're going to go to a list of what a good teacher does. So why don't we put that in the does list? So a good teacher connects the classroom to the real world. Connects class to real world. Okay, what else does a good teacher do? What are some of the behaviors a good teacher manifests?
Punctual.
Say again.
Punctual.
Is punctual. Okay, that's a characteristic. Punctual.
Sorry.
That's all right. Okay, again, I'm a linguist. Words matter.
You're correct. You're correct. I am not.
You guys are engineers and scientists, right? So different categories mean to you. So I worry about how things fit into boxes for language and every time I drive over a bridge and make it to the other side, I go to all of those engineering students. Okay. So I can put this. The funny thing about this is part of this exercise is that you can actually move from one list to the next. I could say arrives on time, or I want to say better yet, respects his students' time. How many of you have had a professor, not here at UT Arlington, of course, but how many of you have had a professor who cancels class too much? Doesn't show up on time. Yeah, that to me is not acceptable professional behavior. That's basic professional behavior 101. Because if you work for a company and you don't show up half the time, and you don't show up on time, oh, and by the way, I'm a very frank speaker, so please don't be offended by anything I say, but if that were you at a job, they'd fire your butt. And for cause. no matter how good you are at your job. If you can't be dependable, you can't be there. It's harder for us. I mean, I will tell you that. Oh, he's recording. I forgot. Anybody who knows me knows I'm not afraid to bring up these topics, but this is important. Okay, connects the class to the real world. What else does a good teacher do?
Responds to students' needs.
Responds to students' needs.
I get an email at like 12 o'clock at night sometimes.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to split that up into students' needs and students' inquiries, because I think those are two different things. I think sometimes students don't know what they need, but I still have to respond to them. Certainly, if you make an inquiry, I should respond to you. Okay, let's talk about that just for a second. How long do you give me to respond? A day? 2 days?
Half an hour.
Half an hour? Yeah. Okay, you need to, everybody needs to back off this whole idea that as a teacher, I'm available 24/7. Get over that. I have a life. I have a home. I have a career. It's not that I don't love my students. Okay? But they're part of a bigger picture. One of the things that we're combating are these expectations about instantaneous, if a student sends me an email message at 6:05 on a Friday, and then gets upset with me the next Saturday morning, well, I'm trying to eat my Cocoa Puffs and watch my cartoons, because I get weekends too. I have little sympathy for the student for whom I don't respond instantaneously. And so I actually communicate to my students what my expectations are about. And we're going to get to that. So connects, responds. What else does a good teacher do? Encourages. Is that what I heard? Encourages, okay. And what you were going to add?
Yeah, prepares class with fun.
Okay, so I'm going to say encourages all sorts of things. Prepares. I'm going to say prepares for class. I heard, not against Charlotte, of course, that there are professors, not here at TA, who sometimes show up and the students wonder, did you even know you had to be here today? Any faculty member who doesn't get the students see that, again, that to me is not professional behavior. Okay. Are there any of these, I'm going to stop here. I know you have other things written down. That's okay, but I want to stop here. Are there any of these things that you think might not be on this list? So let's start with. So should in fact a teacher be engaging? Is that part of the job? Yes or no? Yes. Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. See? What did I just do? I engaged you. Show by doing, okay? Okay, devil's advocate. Hell no. You have to want to come. Listen, it's not my job to engage you. It's not my job to entertain you. You're adults. You chose to be here. I don't have to engage you. You should come already pre-engaged. To hell with that. I'm just going to lecture. Is that okay? I mean, aren't you adults? Aren't you already engaged?
Could do that, but I like someone who's a little bit more excited about what they're doing. Who's
Okay.
actually into it.
And engagement is more, I think, than just the lecture, right? It's trying to get a conversation going, even if it's not the exchange we're having with you, at least in the student's head.
Mm-hmm.
So it shows your enthusiasm in the lecture.
Okay. So it's not just about getting you guys pumped. I have to be sort of pumped too. And notice that what these all have in common is we're communicating. It's not just me standing at the front, sharing my wisdom with you. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay. Curious. Is it my job as a teacher to be curious? Should that be on the list? No? I see some no's. I see some
Maybe not,
yeses.
but I wonder why you got a PhD in that subject if you're not curious about it.
Okay. So,
Aren't you interested in it?
yeah, I am. But, I mean, as a teacher, should I be curious?
I'm trying to learn new things, new research coming out.
Okay, so now all of a sudden, here's a funny thing. Somebody just said one of these metrics research. So we are a research institution, right? How many of you have heard the phrase Tier 1? Oh, yeah, I hear it every day. I live Tier 1. I have Tier 1 printed on the back of all my t-shirts. It's Tier 1. Okay? And I have a colleague who's fond of saying Tier 1 is not just about excellent research. A Tier 1 school is excellent at everything. Tier 1 schools have excellent professors who teach at the top levels. Tier 1 schools have excellent professors who do research at the cutting edge. Tier 1 schools have faculty members and students who are using their knowledge to engage the world around them, to solve problems, to make the world a better place. All of that, I think, is wrapped up in the curiosity. And that, to me, speaks to the fact that a really ideal teacher is still him or herself, still a student. How many books or articles have you read in the past couple of weeks about being a good teacher?
There's one at the UPS conference in DC.
Okay. So maybe there were special events, but how much attention do you spend in your own career here as a student, as a graduate student, thinking about being a teacher? A lot?
Yes.
Not much? A good deal?
It's because we seek it.
You seek it. Okay. I will tell you that most of the faculty walking through the door, I do a little informal quiz at new faculty orientation, and I ask them, how many of you have ever took a class on how to teach your discipline? Almost nobody stands up. They just assume if you're a crackerjack chemist, you know how to teach chemistry.
It's the voice of experience.
Yeah, we have all, I'm guessing, again, I guess, I'm not here to teach your own, of course, but I guess that you've all once had a professor and you walk out of there at the end of the semester, you think to yourself, oh my gosh, he or she is brilliant. Boy, is he or she suck as a teacher. How many of you have had that feeling before? Raise your hand. If you're not raising your hand, you're lying. Okay? Or you're lucky.
Yeah.
Or you're lucky. Okay? Conscientious? Absolutely. Got to do your job. Attentive, supportive. Charismatic. Let's talk about that one. This is one that a lot of the faculty bother me about. Isn't the teacher's job to be an engaging, charismatic character of a person?
I don't think it's their job, but I think it makes the whole experience much better, and students are much more likely to pay attention and to remember them in the future and remember their lessons.
Why?
It makes things more fun usually, and they connect on more levels. The more learning levels you have, the better. So if they can connect them to wacky stories or
It encourages them to be more active learning themselves.
Okay, so for them to be more engaged, to do their own learning and thinking, to make it more fun.
Actually, most of the classes that we teach these days is also available online.
Okay.
So there should be a difference between someone that just watches those videos or someone that attends the class.
Okay. Okay. So you're touching on a lot of things. You know, I once had a student say to me that I was a terrible teacher because I was deceptive. Ooh. And I said, well, please, go on. Tell me how am I deceptive? I would love to know. And this person said, I love coming to your class. We always learn something. You're engaging. You make it fun. The time goes by. But when you give us a test, you really expect us to know the answers. And I said, I thought a moment, was attentive and supportive, and I asked, why are those things incompatible? Why can't I have high standards and high expectations for you, yet you still enjoy the learning experience? A lot of that comes down, and I'm going to go ahead and move this forward. It comes down to the relationship. I think a good teacher builds appropriate relationships with the students and relationships that foster real learning. And a lot of it has to do with communicating expectations. How often have you received work back from an instructor, professor, and you've gotten a lower grade than you had anticipated, and you're angry because you thought you knew what the professor was looking for, but clearly you were wrong and you suffered for it. How many of you have had that experience? Again, raise your hand if you have in your life. We've all been there. We've all been there. Okay. Stephen Covey, he is a gentleman who, that's okay, I can just hand these along. He writes books about business and business practice. And one of his business principles is begin with the end in mind.